Hello everyone, I'm Transformers Fanco 328 here, and I have over 500 subscribers? I've had this project in the works for years, but I never got around to visualizing it until now. So why not make it a special occasion? Cue the new intro! We all know how boss battles work by this point. They exist to test your skills up to that point, but sometimes they provide a challenge so great that it can frustrate you, and they stand out more because of it. As per usual, there are a few restrictions. Only one per franchise, I have to have beaten them at least once, and there's no major luck-based element to the battle, which rules out most RPG bosses. Just note that most of the entries on the list are final bosses, optional bosses, and bosses from fighting games, since I tend to play those a lot. Anyways, let's get on with the top 10 hardest bosses I've faced in video games. I was going to put Final Bison from Alpha 3 on here due to his deadly Final Psycho Crusher and frustrating AI. Then I beat the shit out of him on the lowest difficulty and realized I just sucked when I first faced him. I also have Third Strike, so you probably knew where this was going.
The mark of my dignity shall scar thy DNA.
And scar it he did. His normal moves have high priority and do crazy amounts of damage even when blocked. His projectiles go through yours, his AI is ruthless! And he cheats by having all three of his super arts on hand when you can only have one of them without the unlockable cheat switch on. Of which, Meteor Strike is like dodging rain. Seraphic Wing is like Final Psycho Crusher, but worse even when blocked and cannot be parried or evaded, and if he's got the full meter when you gun him down, he just jumps back up, possibly with full life intact and ready to pummel you into submission of him as your new god. There are a few things that keep this wannabe Pillar Man from being worse than he is. You can cut off all of his super arts, including Resurrection. If he resurrects, it locks his super arts for the rest of the round. He'll almost never be able to use them if you bring the difficulty down to 1 star in 1 round, though he can still kick your ass even then. And the game actually tones him down a bit after you lose to him a few times. You'll know it when he starts laughing in your face like a dumbass more often.
Hey, fuck off, kid! Let's go!
Clearly he learned from the Shao Kahn school of SNK bosses. Sometimes I'm reminded of pains in the ass just by browsing random YouTube videos. Badman and Black Rose reminded me of the only non-final or optional boss on the list, Burner Man, one of the Robot Masters from the hardest Mega Man game, Mega Man and Bass. The level itself is already a pain in the ass regardless of who you choose, and this will likely be the 3rd level you play should you be following the boss weakness cycle in this game. The boss himself has loads of hard to dodge moves that can either do a good amount of damage on you, like his dive bomb or grenade, or defend himself while luring you into the instant kill spike pits on the edges of the larger than the screen arena, like the flamethrower, bear traps, and his dash attack. Sometimes in quick succession. Since he's a Mega Man boss, the standard weapons do little damage to him, but what puts him on the list is getting the weakness weapon, the Ice Wall, to hit him effectively. It only works when he's standing still, so you can push him into the spikes, which isn't easy to take advantage of since he's constantly moving around. If it doesn't trap a stationary Burner Man, it'll break without doing much damage. Oh, and you only get 10 uses of the weapon. Did I mention that weapon ammo doesn't recover if you die? Bass can make the fight somewhat easier considering his double jump can get past that wave burner and leaves him open for an ice ball, but if you're fighting him as Mega Man, oh good friggin' luck! And you have a rematch with him during the Fortress stages, like every other Robot Master. At the very least, he's not repeatedly demanding that we be incinerated into the dirt. You probably know what I was talking about, but I'm not gonna- Burn to the ground! Burn to the ground! You stay on this! Have I said that Revengeance is awesome yet? Yes? Well, let me do it again. This game is awesome! The gameplay is fun and downright cathartic, the set pieces were incredible, the boss fights were some of the best I ever played, and the music is not only great to listen to on its own, but it also works to make the battles it plays in more awesome. Even as hard as Armstrong is, he's still one of the best final bosses I've ever fought. but let's explain his difficulty since it's more than just
Nanomachine, son!
Several of his moves are tough to dodge, including a grab where he displays his sudden flight capabilities if you try to jump it, fire waves that can take off half of your health as soon as the match begins if you aren't careful, healing himself later on in the fight, which he can then counter your blows if you're just slicing away randomly, and a moment where he takes huge chunks of the Rect Excelsus and tosses them at you, which you have to do a precision slice on, or you will die. Fortunately, if you succeed at that, you get some nano paste to heal with, and his health goes down fairly quickly. Even more so if you succeed at the quick time events provided. But then there's the Jetstream DLC version of this fight, which is the same battle, with the exception that he has the health of the losing phases from the main story. His eruption has a range that you can see, and he has a new charging move. And yes, he can fly while using this too, so you better have mastered that combat dodge, which is the extent of what you'll be capable of doing in this campaign. And I swear his grab range seems to have increased since the last battle. Not to mention no quick time events to drain his health quicker, but no Excelsus chunks to toss or mid-battle healing either. Oh, and no air attacks, okay? Don't get me started on the ridiculous trophy for beating it on a high difficulty without taking a hit. You know what? F that shit, I just want him dead! And we all thought Taboo was hard. This is the one time I have to abandon my low difficulty to prove a point on how hard they are viewpoint, since this fight doesn't exist on low difficulties. The various forms of the Swarm have attacks that require strong premonition to dodge, and can easily knock you off the arena with powerful and crazy-ass attacks, like lifting the stage up, dropping on it like a plank, Meta Knight sword combos, and by duplicating your moveset, so your powerful moves, and custom items that benefit from them should you have them turned on, can be used against you. Yes, beating the clone basically nets you the victory unless it's the Wii U version, but it's no pushover, especially considering you only get 2 lives and 5 minutes for this fight. And if you get game over and choose to continue from there, the difficulty drops by 0.5, and keeps dropping the more you get game over. Forms get cut, the battle becomes more predictable, and you miss your shot at beating the highest difficulty. This means you have to be as flawless as possible on 9.0, or you're starting from scratch. At least with other games, losing just means that you retry without it becoming easier the more you lose, with some exceptions of course. To be fair though, Master Core is a kick-ass boss fight. That, and I'm glad that it exists because now I can finally play Smash Bros. On difficulties other than the easiest ones without fear of losing within 20 seconds. Yeah, I was a kid. And a pussy. Shut up. The Sonic 4 saga has been seen as meh, for good reason. It seems like Sega was entirely out of ideas, even for Episode 2, and just reused concepts from past Genesis games while slapping a 4 on the title and calling it a new game. However, the first episode had pinch modes for the old bosses as a means to make them seem new. And it dramatically changed the way the Sonic 2 final boss played out. Already one of the harder Genesis-era bosses, it seems like this will be easier since you have rings, a checkpoint, and a homing attack this time. That doesn't mean shit after you land 12 hits, as the machine goes haywire and starts pulling new, hard-to-dodge moves such as jumping back and forth, lasers, and a weapon that fires from its head. It's also now protected by an electric shield, so you can't just attack it like you could before. You have to have it launch one of its arms, get it to fall, and hit it 3 times or homing attack it in the air to knock it into the machine to lower its shield and land a few hits before the hand returns and the shield reactivates. Easier said than done, especially if you get hit a lot, as the rings keep flying farther and farther each time you take a hit. And when you die, you've only got 3 of them to work with. After a while, those rings are almost impossible to get back. After 12 more hits, the boss will randomly determine where to strike the floor, where you only have a few seconds to hit it one last time, or die and restart. The game gives no indication that you need to hit it there and then. And yeah, you have to do the boss rush all over again if you get game over. I lost almost 30 lives to just this one boss, so I think this might be the hardest fight in the series. Yeah, even more than the Bio Lizard, which doesn't punish you that badly. Maximilian? Best friends? This one's for you. Disclaimer, Biofreak's music is very hard to come across, so you'll just have to settle with Busta Groove. Playing through the arcade mode of Biofreaks is hard enough. A novice And after you deal with assholes who keep spamming the same moves over and over again to nearly silver levels of annoyance,
It's no use!
you're treated to this Goliath. Auto-shielding to the degree where ranged weapons are as useful as they were in the 2007 Transformers game
That is to say, not at all.
is very hard to hit despite its large size, missiles that hit hard and serve as this monster's ultimate zoning technique, difficult to determine hurt boxes on his other attacks, leading you to taking more damage than you should, sharks that hurt you almost randomly so long as you're in the water, and most importantly, you're fighting the camera almost as much as you're fighting the Mutilator itself. This battle would be so much easier, or at least more manageable, if there was some camera control so it doesn't make it hard to determine where you're flying to. And to make things even better, I put this guy on the list from my battle with him on Novice. If he's this hard on that low a difficulty, that says a lot more about Max's boss rage. But this isn't the giant fighting game boss you expected to be on the list. No, that's next! When it comes to Tekken bosses, it really boils down to whether Jinpachi from 5 or Azazel from 6 is harder. And while both are difficult in their own way, I find Jinpachi to be rather tame on lower difficulties, as it really just takes me 1 or 2 tries to take him down, despite its cheap advantages. On the other hand, it usually takes me about 15 tries to beat Azazel, while he keeps getting perfects on me. On easy! The reason? The difficulty of this fight stems from the fact that, unless he's about to execute an attack or is in the air, he auto-blocks everything! Sure, Tekken AI does that all the time anyways and gets randomly hard after a few straight wins by recognizing when you spam the same move, but Azazel hits so hard, can often block even mid-attack animation. Stole Jinpachi's stun, and the double characters is unblockable and takes half your life lasers, cheats by having his crystals do chip damage even when you have that shit turned off, and his size, usually a glaring flaw for a fighting game boss like Onslaught or Motaro, makes his attacks much harder to dodge, with little room to capitalize on a size disadvantage. Doesn't help that, in arcade mode, it comes right after 2 also annoyingly difficult boss fights. Those being Nancy, whose battle is so cheap you move on to the next one even if you lose, and Boss Jin, who starts with Rage Mode and suddenly becomes an expert, especially if you've scarcely lost by that point and still rely on the same moves. So the Purple Winged Dragon of Ra will show up and beat the shit out of you right after you've dealt with some really hard fights. This is so strange, seeing as Tekken bosses before Jinpachi were almost insultingly easy to beat. Hell, even Jinpachi often plays by the rules compared to Azazel. And then no one seems to be bringing it back to that, though not for lack of trying. I don't want Azazel to be the topping point of my fighting game bosses on the list. We need some SNK bosses. Real ones. And that's where Capcom vs. SNK 2 comes in. To face the hidden bosses, you need to fulfill a lot of specific criteria. But unlike most secret fighting game bosses, you can lose, continue, and still go for the bosses. And you will need it. While CBS 2 is no walk in the park, Shinakuma and God Rugal, which when you fight is random and not tied to your bruiser characters, I checked, are a damn night terror. Mostly because they often tap into a perfect play AI, evading and tanking your attacks with the greatest of ease while they do ungodly amounts of damage by barely looking at you funny. Hell, their chip damage is even worse than Gil's. Shinakuma can fire 2 Hadokens midair, his throw chops half of your life bar, and he easily combos most of his moves to destroy what little remains of your life bar, and even has some devastating and lightning fast super moves that I'm glad I never got to see used on me. You know God Rugal is the worst of the two the moment his intro has him tossing Akuma to the side like a used tissue. But now Rugal has a super genocide cutter that can kill you upon contact depending on your character, a fucking rush super that demolishes any chance you had of beating him, and his normal moves do way too much damage for their own good, even by Rugal standards. And he has Akuma's teleport, in tandem with his already powerful and difficult to fight against moveset. Yeah, you're screwed. Did I mention that they get about 15% of their health back when they beat one of your characters, much like you would on the multi-man match? Yeah, they play by the rules, at least comparably to a certain other boss on this list. To be fair, beating them means you unlock them to devastate what remains of them. Huh? They can't take a hit? Well, couldn't even give me that. I've heard all about how hard Shao Kahn is. And I just got into Mortal Kombat thanks to how awesome MKX turned out. Thing is, I don't have a PS4. Or any money for that matter. What I do have is a PS1 emulator with proper controller support. And I'll prove how weak Kahn really is in the trilogy port. It's time I finally faced him in Mortal Kombat!
Round 1, fight! Flawless victory.
Remember when I said Bloody Maria Nightmare difficulty took me about an hour and a half to beat? Shao Kahn, on the lowest settings of the trilogy port, doubled that! Since I'm basically talking about the MK3 version, let's focus on that rendition. He takes hits like an iron wall, deals damage that would make Gil jealous, and has a ridiculous arsenal of moves to take advantage of with priority that could probably beat Extreme Speed.
Feel the wrath of Shao Kahn.
The list includes powerful green balls he spits out at you, constantly, a shoulder tackle which he can do in the air as well in case you thought that jump kicking was a good idea, a hammer that leaves you reeling, and he can grab you. Well, you can't grab him.
Is that your best?
The best part is that he has no lag after he does a move, so he can shoulder tackle you repeatedly among other things, which is a serious blow to anyone's ego. Blocking leaves you in hit stun no matter the move, so you might as well just take the hit. And what would usually be his biggest weakness, his taunts, are often used as a lure, making you think you're going to exploit his arrogance, only for him to beat you senseless.
You will never win.
The only thing keeping him from the top is that each round takes about a minute to complete regardless of the outcome, so beating him and being beaten are mercifully short. His taunts still leave him wide open if you're fast enough, and he'll sometimes do a rising shoulder tackle over your head, leaving him wide open for a good uppercut.
Feel the power of...
Even then, that won't guarantee victory. In fact, you wanna know how I ended Shao Kahn's 3-hour curb stomp? Not using the bosses, not surrendering, but being a noob. Noob Saibot's Black Orb prevented his attacks from actually hitting for a brief period of time, enough to land a few solid hits on him and finally put an end to my torture. Yes, it's cheap, I know, but I'd rather be sane than pridefully mad.
It's official. You suck.
Yeah, thanks for the vote of confidence, Khan. And here's a recap. Number 10, Santana. Number 9, the EPA's worst nightmare. Number 8, the Senator. Number 7, Symbolism! Number 6, we ran out of ideas. Number 5, Metal Gear, meh. Number 4, the Forgotten Egyptian God card. Number 3, 2 bosses, 1 hell. And number 2, You know, before it was confirmed that Bashonord here was the identity of this boss, I said he was the physical form of the Kingdom Hearts series' god, so his position on this list was locked the moment I first fought him. He moves lightning fast, rendering your otherwise game-breaking shot locks and other powerful deck commands completely useless, can basically kill you if he even so much as touched you with any of his attacks or combos, no matter what level you're at, can use several of your uber-powerful commands and attacks from other bosses, grants you no mercy whatsoever, he even has a rage quit attack of his own, which pulls you up, brings you down to 1 HP with the right abilities, and leaves you wide open for another attack, since your character is getting ground bounced for a second, which you have absolutely no control over. Since the game considers that attack separate from the rest of his moveset, meaning not part of any kind of combo, just about any move he'll follow up with will kill you! If you manage to survive all of that and get him to about half health, he turns invisible. When he does so, you can't lock onto him, so you aren't sure where he'll be, though he can still be hit. It's also at this point where he just attacks you with literally everything he's got without breaks, meaning he'll likely hit you with a tornado that flings your deck commands all over the field, and have you frantically try to regain them while he'll pull meteors, raging storms, combos, and the rope of death, which you'll inevitably mess up and fall into due to how stressed out you are. I'm just fortunate to have beaten him once, and it made me the happiest boy in the world for just that one moment. Then I left the place and realized I missed some treasures in the land of departure. Guess what? He returns for a rematch.
Ultra Chicken!
You realize, of course, that you deserve to die for that joke alone.
Totally worth it.